Okay, folks, this is Dr. Coonsberry, and I'm here this is our week 2 lecture. So, the fundamental of network security. So, we're going to start out talking about first of all, let me go through the 7 layers of the OSI model. You are probably familiar with that. Uh, Remember, layer 7 is the application layer. Layer 6 is the presentation layer. Layer 5 is the session layer. Layer 4 is the TCP UDP layer, sometimes called the transport layer. Layer 3 is called the network layer. And layer 2 is called the data link layer. And layer 1 is called the physical layer. So when we talk about network security, we're talking about how do we protect the network from several attacks, several malware. Let's look at some of these possibilities. So, what is network security? It means different things to different people. To an engineer, network security means securing access to the network, to the local network, or to the intranet. And what are we securing it from? We're securing it from different kind of attacks, like DOS, denial of service attack, distributed denial of service attack, from hackers, from abuse, from viruses, and from Trojan, from worm, from many other things. So this is why do we need to protect the network? We need to protect the network because most of the time the business relies on the network. What do I mean by that? Users on the same network in an organization has to be able to communicate with each other, and that's very important. If the network goes down, communication between internal users and sometimes external users are disrupted, and sometimes the disruption has impact on the organization being able to meet its commitment, meet its mission. So it's very important to actually to protect the network from all these vulnerabilities, DOS, DDoS, hackers, abuses, and viruses. These are called network vulnerabilities. Now, this is from an engineering perspective. An engineer will say that, but what would an end user say? Well, I need to have a network that I can trust, that I can send email, I can chat, I can save my documents to the network share. So, from an end user perspective, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about protecting the network. Now, what does it mean to secure a network? To secure a network means to have, if you need confidentiality, meaning to protect data from the public, you want it to be confidential. So that part of what I mean by securing a network. We want integrity in the network. So what does that mean to have integrity in the network? We want what you send is what is received. Nobody is intercepting the packets and changing them. So, if you're sending an A is what the recipient is receiving. If you're saying trade 200 shares of stocks, and the receiver is seeing trade 200 shares of stock. And also, we want the network to be available. We talked about that a little bit earlier. What does it mean for the network to be available? Remember the word CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's very important, and you're going to see that again in this course. Now, the book talks about the 7 domain of an IT infrastructure, and I'll repeat that here. Remember the user domain, the workstation domain, the LAN domain, the LAN connectivity to the WAN domain, remote access domain, WAN domain again, this is by itself the WAN, and application and system infrastructure. So our goal when we talk about protecting the network, we're talking about protecting these 7 domains. Okay? The objective is to secure these domains. Like I say, how do we secure these domains? We want to have the proper configuration. How do we secure these domains? We want to have the proper tools in place. We want to educate the user. We want to monitor the network. Going back to the tools, we want systems like IDS, IPS to be able to secure the network. So there's a lot of things that we can do to secure a network. And when we talk about securing a network, we're talking about securing these 7 domains. Now, can we really measure network security? Well, yes, we can. I mean, how do we do it? Silence at work. And when there's a lot of silence at work means nothing is going wrong and nothing is broken. There's nobody is attacking the network. Your users are not losing files. So how do we secure a network? Well, be ready. Be ready for anything that can happen on the network. Plan for the worst case scenario. Have a contingency team. Be alert. Monitor, and monitor. You monitor a lot of things: logs, activities, disruption, pattern of traffic, anything that would seem unusual. You need to monitor for those. Anything that sounds unusual is very likely that somebody is doing something they are not supposed to. Monitor who is doing what. Not necessarily what they are typing, but also you can monitor the traffic they generate. Now, what are some of the attacks that your network can face? Well, we talk about DDoS attack, denial of service, and distributed denial of service. Hijacking, somebody can hijack your network and make you do things that you don't want to do. They can flood your network with a lot of packets that your system cannot even answer to legitimate requests. Floods, we talked about that already. TCP sync. So it's like you request a client to talk to you, but you leave the client pending. You don't answer. So you say, "Hey, I want to talk to you." So the client waits for you, and you don't answer it. So that's called a TCP sync. Another one is called DNS spoofing. What does that mean? You spoof the DNS. Remember, DNS takes a domain name and resolve it into an IP address. So if you spoof that, let's say Microsoft.com is some number. Now you change Microsoft.com to some other number. Now the packet is going to the different place. DHCP spoofing, meaning that your computer, your network is used to getting a series of IP addresses, class A, class B, or whatever. Now what you do, you change those ranges that your router, a lot of your system do not even know what those IP, they don't understand any of these new IP addresses. Misuse proxy service. Sometimes your packet goes somewhere and wait there and it's rerouted. Now, if you can use a proxy server to look at these packets, change them, and do other things with them. Eavesdropping, so somebody can listen to your network without you knowing. Data modification, you can modify data. Like I said earlier, you can say, okay, we're going to trade 100 shares of stocks, and somebody actually changed the 100 to 200 or 2,000. You're in trouble because you didn't. Your intention was only to trade 100 shares of stocks. IP spoofing, you can spoof IP addresses. Now, here are some more attacks. You can attack at the application layer. Application layer meaning the HTTP layer or SMTP layer or FTP layer. Man in the middle attack means you between the sender and the receiver. You want to stand in the middle and you grab a packet, look at it, change it, do whatever you want, and then you send it to the user. So the user doesn't know that there is somebody in the middle looking at the packet. Sniffer attack, somebody put a sniff on your network and look at everything that you are doing, and there are many, many more types of attacks. Now, to mitigate this, what do you need to do? You need to have a firewall. Most of these attacks, maybe not the virus attacks, not the Trojan attacks, but you need a firewall. A firewall can stop most of these attacks. Okay, what is a firewall? A firewall is like a choke point, right? It's like a door. Before you get from one side of the door to the other side of the door, you go through a guard, and the guard gives you permission to go to the other side. If the guard feels that you do not have the right to do that, he will stop you and drop the packet. So that's the purpose of the firewall. The firewall is mostly to look at a filtering agent. It acts like a filtering agent, and it will filter all the packets that come and goes to the network. Now, how does it do that? Well, the packet itself is made up of a lot of headers. It has header information. So the firewall will look at the headers and see, based on the stamp on the headers, it'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to let this one go. I'm not going to let this one go, and so on and so forth. So what's the purpose of the firewall? The purpose of the firewall is mostly to filter content based on permission, based on ACL. Okay? It cannot really do anything else. So it can only look at the network component of the firewall, the network headers, and filter based on that network headers. There are three main type of firewalls: packet filtering, circuit gateway, and application gateway. Our interest is mostly on packet filtering. Okay, this is the simplest example of a firewall. So you have your internal network, you have the firewall, and you have your external network. So you are protecting the internal network from packets, from attacks or whatever, from the external network. In this example, the internet. So usually that middle computer will have two NIC network interface cards, and the external traffic will come on the external facing, and the internal traffic will come on the internal facing. So, and the firewall will look at each packet one after another and see what is in the header, and it'll compare it with its access control list and see, okay, are you allowed or you not allowed? If you allow, it will let you go in. If you're not allowed, it will stop you. So this is week 2. Now, this is your lab. For the lab, I'm asking you to download SmoothWall, and we're going to configure the diagram below. Our SmoothWall will be the firewall, and we're going to have a couple networks, one on the left side and one on the right side. The internal network is called the green network. The external network is called the red network. So you are protecting the green network from the red network. Okay, so at this point, I want you to go to www.smoothwall.org and download SmoothWall 3.1. Now, you'll need to create an ISO image. If you have never created an ISO image, just search this on Google, and you'll find all kind of tools on how to create an ISO image. The ISO image then, you can take that ISO image, put it in your drive, your disk drive, and reboot your computer. It will make sure it boots to the ISO image, and once it boots to the ISO image, it will start creating your firewall. You'll see the first it'll give you a picture. So I've talked about this already: the green interface, the yellow interface, and the red interface. Okay. There's a YouTube on how to configure SmoothWall, and look at it and start your, go to the lab. If you have a computer at home, you can do this at home. If you have a computer, if you do not have a computer, go to the lab and ask them for a computer with a disk drive. You do not need to install Linux. It will automatically install Linux when you configure the firewall. That's it. I hope if you have any question, please let me know. And if you don't have any question, I will see you at the next.